The Unforgettable Disappearance of Lila Monroe, Winthrop, Washington, 1998. On a cold October evening in 1998, 22-year-old Lila Monroe walked into the mist-laced hills just east of Winthrop, Washington, and vanished without a sound. No distress call, no disturbed brush, no sign of a struggle. She was simply gone. Nestled in the remote folds of the North Cascades, Winthrop, Washington, is a town defined by its isolation, with a population of just under 400 people, a main street resembling the Old West, and long stretches of pine-fringed backroads. It feels suspended in time. In autumn, the town transforms. Fog clings to the valleys, the air grows sharp, and the wilderness surrounding it presses in a little closer. It was into this silence that Lila Monroe stepped on the evening of October 17, 1998. Before we dive in, if you enjoy chilling true stories and unsettling mysteries, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you know when new videos are available. Lila was 22 years old at the time of her disappearance. A recent graduate from Eastern Washington University with a degree in environmental studies, she had returned to her hometown to regroup after college. Those who knew her describe her as gentle, thoughtful, and introverted, someone who preferred the company of nature to the noise of crowded rooms. She worked part-time at a local co-op and volunteered on weekends with a trail maintenance group in the nearby Okanagan National Forest. By all accounts, Lila was in a period of transition. After spending 4 years away, she moved back in with her father, Raymond Monroe. Friends noticed she had become more withdrawn than usual in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, though nothing outwardly alarming was reported. She was often seen walking the old fire roads outside town, usually alone, and frequently scribbling in a leather-bound journal she kept close. Locals remember spotting her walking east out of town several times that fall, always near dusk, always with her worn green backpack slung over one shoulder. According to the original incident report, file #WA 98-1037, Lila was last seen by a cashier at Mel's General Store on Saturday, October 17th, around 5:45 p.m. She purchased a bottle of water, a granola bar, and a small pack of batteries. Security footage, grainy and static-filled, shows her exiting the store just before 6 p.m. She wears a dark windbreaker, jeans, and signature hiking boots. From there, she is believed to have headed toward Goat Creek Trailhead, a lightly trafficked trail 3 miles east of town. She never returned. Her father, a retired Forest Service worker, reported that she was missing the following morning after she had failed to come home. She always told me where she was going, Raymond told investigators. She'd leave a note on the fridge or call from the ranger station. That morning, there was nothing. A search was initiated within 24 hours. The first teams, composed of local deputies, forest rangers, and volunteers from the Methow Valley Search and Rescue, focused on the Goat Creek corridor, sweeping the area with dogs, drones, and aerial support. Lila was familiar with the trail, which led into a dense patch of second-growth fir and cedar. Despite the thoroughness of the initial 72-hour search window, nothing was found. No footprints, no discarded items, not even broken branches to suggest she had passed through. Over the next 2 weeks, more than 60 volunteers scoured a 10-mile radius on foot and horseback. Canine units were brought in from Seattle and Spokane, and tracking dogs were deployed to trace her scent. But all efforts led to the same result. Nothing. The only object of interest found during the initial sweep was a single AA battery, unpackaged and undamaged, discovered roughly 1.2 miles from a trailhead near Shallow Ridge. Whether it belonged to Lila was never confirmed, but the model matched the one sold at Mel's General Store that same day. Beyond that, the terrain gave up no secrets. As time passed, investigators began to consider alternative possibilities. The FBI briefly consulted on the case in November, classifying it as a Category B missing person under case code #MPR 8742, meaning no evidence of foul play had yet been found. Still, circumstances suggested suspicious or unexplained disappearance. Lila's personal effects, including her journal, glasses, and an unused bus pass to Spokane, were found in her bedroom. Her car remained untouched, parked in the gravel lot outside her father's home. Bank records showed no withdrawals. Her phone, a simple Nokia model with prepaid minutes, had not been used since the day before she disappeared. Locals began whispering theories. Some believed she planned to leave, though no one could say where. Others speculated about wildlife attacks, sudden injuries, or even accidental falls into one of the region's many glacial ravines. But nothing accounted for the total lack of trace. One detail that surfaced months later drew renewed attention, though it, too, would lead nowhere. After the first heavy snow, a hiker passing through Goat Creek Trail in late December reported seeing what appeared to be a scarf snagged high in a tree, roughly 20 feet off the trail. By the time a ranger was dispatched to investigate, a storm had passed through. The tree was covered in fresh snow and no scarf was found. The lead was logged and left open in the file. In April 1999, the Okanagan County Sheriff's Office reclassified the case as a cold case. An evidence box labeled #OCSOLM 98 remains archived in the basement of the Winthrop Municipal Building. It contains photographs, search maps, and copies of Lila's handwritten notes, gathered from her room and backpack. Many of the entries are mundane, lists of local bird species, trail observations, and short poems. But one entry, dated October 13th, stands out. It's getting harder to sleep. The silence isn't silent anymore. It's like something is waiting out there. Investigators found no further context for the entry. The community of Winthrop quietly moved on. But for those who knew Lila, her absence was a wound that never healed. Her father remained in the same house until 2007, hoping for any word. He passed away in 2009. Her mother, who lived in Spokane, never spoke publicly about the case. Over the years, amateur sleuths have taken an interest in the story. Online forums occasionally mention her name, mostly concerning similar wilderness disappearances in the Pacific Northwest. Some believe Lila Monroe was the victim of a random predator, human or otherwise. Others propose she suffered a mental breakdown and intentionally vanished. A smaller subset clings to the theory that she was taken by someone who knew the forest better than she did. But no theory fits all the facts. No one has ever been named a suspect, and no trace of Lila Monroe has ever surfaced. Her case remains unsolved. October 17, 1998, the last known day, the town of Winthrop woke up to a crisp, blue-skied Saturday morning. At 7:16 a.m., according to logs from the U.S. Forest Service weather station, the temperature was 39 degrees Fahrenheit with light humidity. By afternoon, it would warm to a high of 58 degrees Fahrenheit. Clear skies, no wind, ideal hiking conditions. At 8:03 a.m., Lila Monroe was seen walking past the Riverside Cafe on Glover Street. A waitress on her smoke break recognized her. Dark windbreaker, olive canvas backpack, shoulder-length brown hair tucked behind her ears. She nodded at the waitress but said nothing. According to the witness statement filed under OCSO Form 302-B, the waitress described her as quiet, kind of in her head, and not unusual for Lila's demeanor. At approximately 8:45 a.m., Lila stopped at Bean and Birch, a small coffee kiosk just outside town on Highway 20. The barista, 17-year-old Danielle Reese, later recalled that Lila ordered a black coffee and asked if the trailheads had been busy that week. She also wondered if Goat Creek was still open. The barista confirmed it was. Lila thanked her, smiled faintly, and left. The timestamp on the receipt read 8:47 a.m. Mel's General Store, located a mile down the road, was her next confirmed stop. Surveillance footage, enhanced later by state investigators, shows her entering the store at 9:11 a.m. She walked straight to the camping aisle and picked up a pack of AA batteries, a water bottle, and a Cliff Bar. She paid in cash, $4.82. At 9:14 a.m., she exited the store and disappeared from view. That is the last confirmed visual of Lila Monroe. Timeline of disappearance. 9:20 a.m., witness Michael Taggart, a retired postal worker, saw a woman matching Lila's description walking along Goat Creek Road. He was driving westbound and passed her as she walked, roughly 2 miles from the trailhead. She looked focused, like she was heading somewhere with a purpose, he told investigators. 10:05 a.m., a family of hikers reported seeing a lone woman near the Goat Creek overlook. A about a half mile from the main trailhead. The description fits Lila, mid-20s, green backpack, dark jacket. They didn't speak to her, but noted she was walking off the main trail into a side path known as Cold Vein Spur. This detail would become central to the search. 12:30 p.m., another possible sighting occurred. A hunter claimed to have seen a woman sitting alone on a log about 2 miles from the creek bend. When asked later by deputies, he said she looked like she was meditating or just resting. Didn't wave, didn't speak. The sighting wasn't confirmed. 6 p.m., Lila fails to return home. Her father, Raymond Monroe, initially assumed she stayed late on the trail. He leaves a note on the kitchen table. Call when you return. 10:17 p.m. Concerned, Raymond drives to the trailhead. Her car, a dusty blue 1987 Subaru GL, is parked near the entrance, alone in the lot. The driver's side is locked. There are no signs of disturbance. Her phone is not inside. Raymond searches briefly along the trail entrance with a flashlight before driving to the Winter Police Department. October 18, 1998, missing person report filed. At 7:42 a.m., Lila Monroe is officially reported missing under incident report #WA 98-1037. The responding officer, Deputy Colleen Maris, notes in her field report, no signs of struggle. The weather was clear overnight. The car was found locked. The subject is known to hike alone. Possible late return, but concerning due to time elapsed. Search and rescue mobilizes within hours. By 10 a.m., coordinated units begin grid searching the Goat Creek Trail. Focusing on the Cold Vein Spur tracking dogs are brought in by 3 p.m., but no definitive scent is picked up beyond the first 600 yards of trail. Her scent, faint and scattered, disappears before the tree line thickens. Her father gives a short, emotional statement to police. She knows these woods better than most people. Something's not right here. She'd never just vanish. Physical evidence recovered. Vehicle, Lila Subaru GL, is thoroughly searched. Inside, a folded paper map of the Methow Valley, an empty coffee cup from Bean and Birch, and a paperback novel titled Pilgrim at Tinker Creek by Annie Dillard. Her wallet is in the glove compartment with $42 in cash and her state ID. Her cell phone is not found in or around the car. Battery discovery. On day 3 of the search, a loose AA battery was found lodged in a patch of moss near Cold Vein Spur, roughly 1.2 miles from the trailhead. It matches the brand sold at Mel's. No fingerprints were lifted, and no further items were recovered in the vicinity. No signs of wildlife disturbance. Forest rangers confirmed that no large predator activity was reported in the area within the previous 30 days. Bears were beginning seasonal denning and were not considered active. No signs of a struggle, torn fabric, or animal remains were found. The search intensifies. By October 20th, the search expands. Helicopters with FLIR forward-looking infrared sweep the ridgelines at dawn and dusk. No heat signatures are found. By day 5, Washington State Search and Rescue reports 62 volunteers on the ground, supplemented by horseback units and ATV teams. Missing posters go up across the state. The Monroe family appears on local television, urging anyone with information to come forward. Her mother, Adrienne Monroe, makes a plea through tears. If someone saw her, if someone has her, please, just tell us she's alive. Please. The Seattle Times runs a brief piece. KOMO News interviews a local forest ranger. The national press never picks it up. Red herrings and false leads. The scratching sound claim. On October 24th, a camper reports hearing what sounded like scratching or whispering near Cold Vein Spur around midnight. Deputies investigate the area thoroughly, including ground-penetrating radar. Nothing is found. The witness later admits he had been drinking heavily and recants part of the story. The white truck. A local couple tells investigators they saw a white Ford Ranger parked off Goat Creek Road around 9:30 a.m. the morning Lila disappeared. The truck was reportedly empty. The engine was cold, and no one was nearby. Authorities tracked down the owner, a seasonal worker with the Forest Service. He confirms he was mapping water runoff paths that day. His logs and GPS verify his location. He's cleared. Community response and theories. As weeks turn to months, theories begin to divide the town. The more grounded theories include wilderness accident. Lila slipped, fell, or suffered a medical event deep in the forest. Her body was never found due to the remote terrain. Voluntary disappearance. Lila walked away, perhaps overwhelmed. Some point to her increasingly introspective journal entries and recent withdrawal from friends. Abduction. A growing faction in town believes she encountered someone in the woods. The peculiar lack of physical evidence fuels this theory. No trace. A smaller subset of townspeople, especially older residents, speak in hushed tones of the go-backs, a colloquial reference to old, unofficial forest dwellers said to live far off-grid in the Cascades. Law enforcement dismisses these rumors as folklore. Ongoing frustrations. Detective Sam Thorne, who took over the case in December 1998, expressed his frustration in an interview years later. We had dogs, we had air support, we had a workforce. We had the weather on our side. But she walked into a trail we knew and never walked out. That doesn't just happen. One lead that didn't fit. In early January 1999, Kenneth Rolfe entered a police station in Wenatchee, 70 miles south of Winthrop, disoriented and mumbling. He told officers he had seen the girl in the woods. He claimed she was alive and living in the walls of the mountain. His statement was recorded, but after a brief psych evaluation, it was dismissed as delusional. His name and account remained buried in an appendix of the case file, OCSO hashtag LM98, SUB23. Years later, some amateur sleuths would question whether his rantings were more symbolic than literal. But by then, official interest had faded. Now, more than 2 decades later, the Monroe case remains unsolved. Her file is stored among dozens of cold cases in the Okanagan County Sheriff's Office archives. Her backpack was never found. Her journal entries, once hopeful, now serve as the closest glimpse anyone has into her final days. In town, her name is still whispered occasionally, especially when the fog rolls low across the pines or when another young woman hikes Goat Creek alone. And then, in the spring of 2003, 5 years to the day since Lila disappeared, someone leaves an unmarked envelope in the night drop box of the sheriff's office. Inside is a photograph. No note, no return address. Just a blurry image of what appears to be a woman standing among trees, wearing a windbreaker, looking straight at the camera. For 5 long years, Lila Monroe's disappearance was filed away in a cold case cabinet deep within the Okanagan County Sheriff's Office. Over time, her name stopped appearing in the local paper. Search efforts ceased. Leads dried up. The Monroe family eventually moved to Spokane, quietly without ceremony. But then came the photo. There was no return address, no note. Just a 4x6 color print in a plain white envelope was dropped into the sheriff's overnight box between 11 p.m. and 6:30 a.m. on October 17, 2003, the 5th anniversary of Lila's disappearance. The image showed a wooded slope, steep and rocky, overgrown with pine. Off-center stood a woman of slender build, wearing a windbreaker and shoulder-length brown hair. The resolution was poor and grainy, like it had been taken on an outdated disposable camera. She appeared to be looking straight at the lens. The case file labeled hashtag WA 98-1037/LM was reactivated for the first time in half a decade. Theory 1, abduction by a known individual. Among law enforcement, the most persistent theory remains the most mundane and disturbing. Detective Sam Thorne, who inherited the case in late 1998, believed Lila never left Goat Creek of her own accord. In his final case log entry, dated February 2000, he wrote, "There's no way to vanish from that trailhead cleanly. If she's not in the forest, someone removed her from it." This theory assumes Lila encountered someone, possibly familiar, on or near Cold Vein Spur. It's a remote but accessible trail, popular among hikers who know the area. A predator, either opportunistic or calculated, could have approached her, coerced her deeper into the forest, and concealed her or her remains beyond known search perimeters. A few people in town fit profiles of interest, though none were ever officially named suspects. Elliot Voss, a former seasonal ranger with prior complaints of aggressive behavior, toward female hikers. His work logs claimed he was in Winlock during Lila's disappearance. No hard evidence ever connected him to her, but the timing of his abrupt resignation from the Forest Service in late October 1998 raised eyebrows. Charlie Ainsworth, a handyman who frequented the Goat Creek area, a known loner with a documented history of mental illness, he was interviewed twice. He claimed he had seen her from a distance, but later contradicted himself. A sweep of his property revealed nothing. Still, no DNA, no fibers, no confirmed sightings. Not even a witness account placing her with another person. And yet, many detectives believe the utter absence of evidence is the evidence. It would take knowledge, patience, and a chilling calmness to wait for her to be alone, far from the trail, and then act. But then, how do you explain the photograph? And if it was her in that image, who took it, and why 5 years later? Theory 2, voluntary disappearance. A walk into silence. This theory, though difficult for the Monroe family to accept, was considered quietly among investigators and openly debated by amateur sleuths online. Could Lila have simply walked away? In the weeks leading up to her disappearance, she had withdrawn. Her friends noted a change, not dramatic, but palpable. She declined invitations. She stopped attending her part-time job at the library without much explanation. Her journal, recovered from her bedroom, included a passage that stood out. I used to believe clarity lived at the edge of thought, but maybe it lives in the absence of everything. I wonder what happens if I just stop, completely stop. Some interpret this as poetic musing. Others see it as an early sign of depressive ideation or a desire to disappear. The idea isn't without precedent. Cases like Christopher McCandless, who walked into the Alaskan wilderness to escape modern life, mirror the sense of existential yearning Lila may have felt. Some believe she could have prepared for such a departure. She purchased batteries, possibly for a small radio or flashlight. She asked the coffee barista about trail conditions, not as a casual hiker, but like someone who needed to know how far she could realistically go. Proponents of this theory argue that she may have slipped into one of the abandoned ranger stations deeper in the Methow backcountry, places off maps, off-grid. She could have lived for weeks, even months, without being detected, especially if she planned it. But her family doesn't buy it. Lila didn't run. Her father said in an interview she was quiet, yes, private, but not suicidal, not escapist. She had a life here, plans. She was starting a photography series. She had dreams. It's also worth noting that Lila didn't take any money beyond a few bills in her wallet. No passport, no bank withdrawals, no online activity. She was a ghost, but not one who left a traceable trail. And again, the photo. If she fled, why surface 5 years later, if only in that haunting image? Theory 3, unnatural territory, the Pine Veil. There's a third theory, unofficial, whispered, and dismissed outright by law enforcement. Locals call it the Pine Veil. In Okanagan folklore, stories abound about people stepping off marked trails and never returning. Old tales of the Cascades describe veil places, geographic dead zones where time, memory, and even identity behave strangely. Some attribute these tales to early settler lore. Others trace them back to indigenous warnings about areas where the forest breathes differently. According to this theory, Lila may have unknowingly entered one of these veil zones, places where the landscape folds in on itself, where a person can wander for days without covering more than a mile, where compasses spin and sound doesn't travel. Skeptics call this a fantasy, but searchers reported oddities during the initial rescue effort. Radios malfunctioned at the Cold Vein Spur beyond Mile 2. Static, drop signals. One dog handler said her bloodhound refused to proceed past a particular grove. Several volunteers complained of echoes or hearing faint voices calling their names, though no such sound could be recorded. And then there's the photograph. Digital analysts later confirmed it had not been digitally altered. It was printed from a film negative, an older Kodak model that was no longer widely in use by 2003. The trees in the photo matched the geography of the Goat Creek Basin. The timestamp on the back was handwritten, May 12, 2001. No one ever claimed responsibility. Is it possible Lila became trapped in some unknown ecological or metaphysical anomaly? Did she survive for years in isolation, mentally fractured and lost in a space that didn't obey natural laws? It's the most far-fetched theory. But in a case where a woman walked into a public trail and was never found, no body, no clothing, no confirmed evidence, it's not entirely less plausible than any other. Lingering questions. 5 years after the photo was dropped off, the trail camera program was introduced in the Winthrop region, aimed at tracking wildlife movement. The motion sensor cameras have captured bears, moose, elk, and in one case, a distant figure standing perfectly still in the shadows of Fir Grove. It was never confirmed to be human, and the resolution image, obscured by fog, was quietly discarded. But those who study the Monroe case point to that image, the photo from 2003, and a single entry in the original case file written in pencil at the bottom of page 17. The victim may have had prior knowledge of coal vein terrain, said in prior interview to enjoy getting lost. Must investigate psychology of isolation. What did she mean by getting lost? Was it metaphor or a premonition? Some say she succumbed to a tragic accident, slipping somewhere deep in a ravine where even helicopters couldn't spot her. Others believe she was abducted by someone who had hunted those trails for a long time, a predator who knew where to hide a body so it would never be found. And a few, those who study the strange patterns of the Pacific Northwest, believe Lila Monroe may have stumbled into a veil she was never meant to find or escape. What do you think happened to Lila Monroe? Was it a tragic accident or something far more sinister? Drop your thoughts in the comments.